When Executive Order 9066 was issued, my father couldn't believe that he would be imprisoned as an American citizen. He thought he had rights as an American citizen. So why should he go to a prison camp and when he had done nothing wrong, he just wanted to live his life like any other American.
I didn't feel that I did anything wrong. And if anybody did wrong, it was the law. Because I figured it was unconstitutional what they were doing.
So he and his girlfriend had thought about going east, even to Nevada, but the window had passed. And so what he decided to do was to change his draft card to a Spanish Hawaiian name. And he had told his parents that maybe he would go to Nevada, but they were so upset themselves. Everyone was so afraid. They just didn't know where they were going, when they were coming back, or what to do. It was very chaotic at that time. My father just wanted to get on with his life, and he tried to, but about 30 days after everyone had reported, he was spotted on a corner in San Leandro.
I didn't feel like I was a criminal, and I didn't feel that I did anything wrong. I may have disobeyed the military order, but I'm not in the military. You know, that's the kind of feeling it was. And so I had to go along with the authorities being put in jail because, I couldn't do anything about it. They apologized for what they're doing.
First, the San Leandro police showed up, and then the military police. And then they arrested him and took him to, actually ended up in federal jail in San Francisco. And at that time, Mr. Bessick of the American Civil Liberties Union visited my father in jail and asked my father if he'd be willing to be used as a test case. And when Mr. Bessick said, if need be, we'll go all the way to the Supreme Court.
Well, he said that there may be all kind of obstacles that occur, and not to be afraid of that. And whatever threats that you get, he says, we'll fight it together all the way. So, you get that kind of answer, and he knows the laws as anybody else. And if he can say that to me, I know I was safe, so I went with him.
My dad thought for sure by the time his case got to the Supreme Court that the Supreme Court would see it was unconstitutional. That's how much he believed in this country and in the Supreme Court and the Constitution. So it took several years for appeals to get up to the Supreme Court. But in the meantime, my father had his bail hearing and went to Tanforan along with everyone else. But he was vilified and ostracized from his own Japanese American community. All these people they had obeyed really the orders. The Japanese American Citizens League had advised everyone to be good Americans. And you can understand that. People were afraid. Certainly my grandparents, who were not citizens, even though they wanted to be citizens, didn't even know what was going to happen to them. Would they be sent back to Japan? Would they be in this prison forever? Some people were really afraid for their lives. It's a bit like what's happening today. People are really afraid. And that's a very human element that I think everybody can identify with. He was always alone. He had disgraced his family. My grandmother cried, and he told me, and my grandfather was disgusted. And his brothers didn't even support him. So he always went it alone, and he stood by his conviction. His Supreme Court case was not decided until December 18th, 1944. So it took about 2 years for appeal. My father was so disappointed in the Supreme Court that they had, decided against him. But, that didn't stop him from always believing in this country. And until his case was reopened in 1983, I didn't know that he had never given up hope that someday that he would be able to reopen his Supreme Court case. That took almost 40 years. Peter Irons had found the evidence in Washington, D.C., really the smoking gun. So he had been looking in American citizen records, and on the file on top of this box like this deep, was the smoking gun, and was a memo from the Department of Justice, the only one that survived, that said, we are lying to the Supreme Court. And also Aiko Hershig Yotsunaga, who was also doing research, she had been hired by the commission to do research on the incarceration as well. So Peter and Aiko actually shared materials, and on a technicality called writ of error petition quorum nobis, they were able to reopen my father's Supreme Court case along with Hirabayashi and Yasui, because it proved that at the time of my father's Supreme Court hearing in 1944, the Department of Justice had lied to the Supreme Court, had withheld evidence, and had destroyed evidence. On November 10th, 1983, was the hearing in San Francisco in the federal court of Northern California, where my father's case was reopened and heard by Judge Marilyn Hall Patel. She knew the evidence. She had seen all the submittals and the amicus briefs that in support. And so she had decided, because the government had never taken a position, that she was going to make a statement.
Everybody was jumping up and down, and crying, and I didn't hear it. And I said, must be that we won. So, and then I talked to Dale, yeah. So Dale says, yeah. And Peter said so also, so we did it.
That was truly a big weight off his shoulders. And for the Japanese American community, I must say, it was a weight off of their shoulders as well, because they've been carrying around all that shame.
I feel that wrong has right, and that I'm involved in it, and to have this, not happen again, for educational purposes, I just continue on, and if I can make an appearance in class and so forth, and let the students know what happened, so that this won't ever happen to them.
That's what was really important, that it was for this nation and future generations, because it showed that we can right a wrong. It is very powerful that we have that ability in this country. And that's why other countries are also looking at what we've achieved. But we still have those struggles. And when the system does work, it works great. But we have to keep fighting for that system to make sure that these injustices are addressed. We can't be thinking that somebody else is going to do it, that it takes all of us collectively. And that's what the redress and reparations movement did, and that's what the Civil Liberties Act of 1988 proved. People together can make a difference, that collectively, that we can right a wrong. That's what my father said. Stand up for what is right, and don't be afraid to speak up.
To have this not happen again, for educational purposes, I just continue on.